Hey, what's up guys? Today in this video, we are going to do a code review of a component that we have created in Storybook based on this reference of a product view inside HyperUI. So what we have tried to do in this video is go through the code which I have written inside my Storybook. This is where the React component has been created. So this is my version where I have taken this code from this HyperUI dev website. You can see the entire source code over here, right? And then what I have done is use my React code to handle that component inside the Storybook, right? So that's what we will look at, how we take that approach, what are some of the things that we need to do, stuff like that. Now, first things first, if you look at this source code, you will see that you need to install this forms and aspect ratio, right? These are the two npm modules that we need for this component to work. So what I have done is already installed them. Let's go inside my code package.json and what is it? Tailwind/forms, right? And this is my aspect ratio. They are not dev dependencies, so this is listed over here. This is fine. Now, once that is done, the straightforward thing to do is copy this source code and paste it in a fresh component, right? So let's go back to our code now. So this is my product view stories. If I go inside my Storybook UI, you can see that I have different sections where ecom is one section. Ecom has cart, which I'm still working on. And the second one, which we are going to look at today, is the product view. So now the product view, as you can see, is, and if I go into the docs, right, it expects a prop called product, which has these properties. Some of them are mandatory, so why don't we go inside the components and start looking at? But before that, what does the story inside our product view says in the Storybook thing? So the title components /ecom/product view, and that is the reason it is inside components, ecom, and then the product view, right? So this is how we define it. We're saying this is the component, so product view is defined, which is inside source, components, product view. If you go inside the folder structure, you will see I have source, components, and then I have product view. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Now we export that meta because that's what Storybook is going to read and understand what is happening inside this story, right? Then we have template. In this template, I'm sending the product view. And then this is my default template parameters. So this is default. That's the reason here we see a default. And then inside that, we have product as a prop. Okay, we send that as part of arguments. We have title, price, featured image. Let me close that out. We have description, subtitle, stars, thumbnail URLs, and then attributes. Okay, so let's go one by one. First of all, let's open up our component as well. Okay, and let's start looking at the code as well. So as you can see, I told you that this component expects a prop where the product is sent, right? And that product is of type iProductDetail. This is the interface that we will need to adhere to. Okay, so that product detail has title, price, featured URL, description as mandatory fields. Now I feel that these are at least those 4 properties which will define the product, and hence these 4 properties are definitely required. Other than, if you don't send it, ideally the product should not even render itself. Okay, so that's the 4 attributes, so as to say. And I'm doing this because if I don't make these mandatory, I'll have to always have those checks and balances, rather the checks whether these properties exist or not inside the entire rendering block of our component, which is fine. I mean, we need to do it, but if there are certain parameters, or rather certain fields which are expected, which are mandatory, the code becomes a little more simple to read, right? So let's get started and see what we have done in the rendering part. So I destructured the 3 things. I could have done the rest of the stuff as well, I don't know why. The description can also come in, but I will do that refactoring later. Okay, then the first thing that I'm doing over here is this featured image, which is coming here, because if we go to our docs, this is the featured image, right? So as you can see, we have this. Okay, so unsplash image, this is with a crop of 608, width crop, width, height 608, and quality 50%. That's the URL parameter which I'm sending. This is the image which is coming up. Okay, so then the image is here. Now what? Let's go down. I'm checking whether the thumbnails exist or not. Okay, because if you remember, product thumbnails is an array of string, but that is not a mandatory field. So that's the reason, as you can see, there is a code block which first checks the existence. So I'm first checking whether the thumbnail URL exists or not, and if the URL length is more than 0, only then I will run that map function. Okay, and inside that map, basically I have an image tag which has the alt, which is same as the product title, and the source itself, which is these things. So as you see inside my props, I did declare that it's an array of string. So as you can see, this is an array of 3 URLs, which is a string, right? So far so good. So let's move ahead. Now we have this pre-order thing. Again, I haven't given too much importance because I know that in the subsequent video, when I will use this as a component inside my vendor store, the pre-order attribute doesn't come in. So I can't use that. So let it be like that. If we need something, we will do about it. I mean, it can be an optional component which just renders if the pre-order is set to true, something like that. Okay, moving along, then I have my H1 font bold, right? This is my product title. So that comes over here. As you can see, this is iPhone 13 with new camera, right? Then comes my subtitle. Again, because the subtitle is a non-mandatory field, it's an optional field, right? I have this, again, check over here so that we can do something, or we don't render it if the subtitle doesn't exist. Okay, so a simple thing for here which we can test is, rather, why don't we do it right at the docs? So I'll need to go inside my canvas. It seems I'm not able to delete it, so maybe I'll just remove it from the code and try again. It should do that, right? So yes, this comes in, right? So as you can understand, the subtitle now doesn't render. So let me undo that, and yes, it should come back. Now we have the stars. So if I make this as 5, right, you will see that this changes. For example, over here, come on, yeah. So it re-renders and it shows the 5 stars. And if I make it 0, like so, everything is back to gray, right? That's what we expected. So what is the code behind this? Let's look at that. So I'll go inside my component. It is calling a function and we are sending the product. So why don't we go inside it? We are expecting the product stars. I created a variable called product stars, and if it is not present, I'm setting it to 0. I have an empty array called star markup, and then I do a for loop. So if my stars is 3, then what I need to do is, because this is a 5-star rating, I still need to render 5 stars, but the 3 stars will be yellow and the rest of the stars will be gray. So that's the logic, which is I loop it for 5. At least there are 5 iterations, and inside that, if my I, which is the current iterator, is less than the current number of the stars of that product. So let's just say we start with 0 and our stars is 3. So 0 is less than 3, right? So it will print the yellow star. Then we iterate to 1, again yellow star, 2 yellow star, and then we have a code which says, is 3 less than count stars? The condition is no, and so it starts with a gray 400, right? And that's how the star is getting rendered. So we push those markup inside the star markup array, and then we return that. That's how, this function is. Okay, where is it? I tend to, right. That's how we are rendering the stars. Okay. And this is how we send the numbers. Moving along, let's just say we have the price as well. Obviously, again, a mandatory field, and that's why we are able to see this. I don't know what's the recent price of iPhone 13, but that's what it is. Okay. Then we have the description, pretty straightforward. Read more, and then the second description, which basically what the component does is it expands, right? So it does a hide and show kind of a thing. Okay. Moving along, we have the most important piece, which is the product attributes. Oops, why can't I scroll over here? Looks like there is a problem with Safari. It doesn't scroll. Let me open up inside Chrome and let's see what happens. Yeah, this does scroll. So maybe there's something weird going on inside my Storybook, inside Safari rather. So I'll just close that out. Okay, so color, size, camera. What is it? These are the product attributes, right? I can have n number of attributes inside a product. So what I have done is I have completely made it dynamic. I have an array of attributes. There is a key and there are values. Okay, this is the basic implementation. I think if I get more, we can modify the code a bit, but that's what I initially thought about it, because the color is an attribute and it has 3 values to it. There is size, which is an attribute, it has 4. Camera has 4, right? So this is what I'm passing over here. Now inside the component, what I have done, I have something called as iProduct attribute. Okay, it has 2 properties. One is a key of type string, and then there are values, which is an array of string. Okay, and then let's go inside the component, and where is my loop? So I have a second component which I have created called product attribute. So what I'm doing over here is, if I see that the props of product has attributes and the length of that attribute is more than 0, which means I have at least one attribute to render, I take that attribute, the index for the key obviously, and then I send it to product attribute. Okay, this is the second component that I have created. And if you look at the Storybook implementation, you can see this is the attribute, the component, right? Product attribute component that is being used over here. How? Let's see. What is the component doing? This component, it renders a field set. There's the legend where the attribute key is coming. That's what shows the color, the size, and the camera, right? And then we are running a loop on the values, because if you remember, value is an array of string. So attribute.values.map, and then I set that out. So label is v index, the key, and right, I think I need to change this a little bit of like key and then the value, key colon value, something like that. ID should also change, but the most important thing is I render the value over here. That's how the Texas T, Fiesta Red, and Cobalt Blue is coming. This is from the HyperUI documentation. This is what I have created on my own. So if you see, I have color, these 3 colors, size, and then I have camera. All right. So yes, this is how the entire component is structured, right? This component now takes these attributes and on its own, it will be able to render. Why don't we do a test, something like that? And I'll just start removing certain stuff to show you how the component just starts to change its behavior. So let me refresh. It has test. Okay, undefined this title. Right. It's because I need to do test.args and not default.args. Let me refresh. Right. Can you see there's a big difference between those two components? Here we have so many things. We have this, whereas this is a very simpler product view, right? So yes, this is how the behavior is. Now, if I introduce something, for example, the stars, right? One by one, it's a 1-star product. I think I placed it in the wrong place. That's the reason it's not coming up. Yeah, the yellow comes in, right? Next, what do we have? We have the product thumbnails. Why don't we push that here? We'll just add one. Okay. And let's see. Perfect. The product image is coming, right? And then let's just say we have only one attribute is memory. Memory, let's just say 4 GB, 8 GB, 16 GB. That's about it. And we remove everything, right? Let's see. Should render with those 4, rather that attribute, right? So as you can see, based on the information that you're providing, my component is able to behave exactly how I want. Obviously, as you can see now, the subtitle is still not there, but yes, that's what is expected, right? And this is the beauty of Storybook, because you are able to test out your component with all the different states and even document it in a way so that the developer very easily goes to this doc, right? He looks at the component, he understands typically what is the display of that component, what are the attributes which are required, and then based on that, he can compose his front-end UI without even needing any major assistance, right? So yeah, that's what I typically do with Storybook. I like playing around with Storybook UI. I create my components. I take these components from HyperUI, which is a great library, right? And then I integrate it with my React components, create something which is very easy to reuse, and I keep them ready so that in any project when I'm doing it right, I am able to use that. So thanks for watching. If you like this video, do click on the thumbs up icon and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.